Hello, this is Kyle, and welcome to the Literature Corner. Yes, it's back, and today I'm going to be talking about Wuthering Heights. Now, the interesting thing about this is the gap between the cultural perception of the book and the reality of the source material. You know, you've probably heard Wuthering Heights described as a sort of spooky love story set in the moors. And yes, there is melodrama in there, but I think love story or romance really suggests something cosy and comfortable and conformist that doesn't transgress, which is really not what Wuthering Heights is. I found it quite amusing, albeit in a depressing way, when publisher HarperCollins made a special cover for Wuthering Heights, marketing it towards Twilight fans. They even used the tagline, Bella and Edward's favourite book. Now, I believe it boosted sales for them, but I'd quite like to see how Twilight fans reacted, because I think they would have been in for a shock. When it was first published under the pseudonym Ellis Bell in 1847, Wuthering Heights was greeted with little success. It's not really considered a purebred Gothic novel as such, but it came under fire for similar reasons at its time. Its motif of unrestrained passion and violence clearly did not sit well with Victorian society. At the centre of it all, you have the brutal, merciless character of Heathcliff, who is described in savage animal terms throughout the novel. Isabella Linton is initially infatuated by Heathcliff, but goes on to say that a tiger or venomous serpent could not rouse terror in me equal to that he awakens. Even Emily's sister, Charlotte Bronte, was critical of Heathcliff's inclusion in the novel. What makes him perhaps even more threatening as a villain is the element of defamiliarization, that we don't know where he's come from. Is he foreign? Has he come from the devil, as it's initially suggested in the novel? Of course, he's portrayed as black in the recent film adaptation, which is interesting. And he doesn't have a surname, and is not part of the class system, therefore, which is the focus of the novel. The Lintons really represent the higher social class, which elder Catherine Earnshaw is aspiring to, and her relationship with Edgar is very conformist and really fits in with the social structure. But in doing so, of course, she betrays her feelings for Heathcliff, which can be seen as far more natural and innate. My love for Linton is like the foliage in the woods. Time will change it, I'm well aware, as winter changes the trees. My love for Heathcliff resembles the eternal rocks beneath, a source of little visible delight, but necessary. So yes, it crosses social boundaries, and it's not comfortable, but it is sincere. It's like an unalterable fact that cannot be denied. And when you look at Heathcliff's revenge, it's all about ownership of property, so it's very much a revenge against these social structures that have tried to deny his bond with Catherine. And you have to question, what does this say about social class? Is it a conservative or a radical message? On one hand, the readers are kind of on Heathcliff's side. You know, even at his very worst, we remember that his treatment at the hands of Hindley would have made a fiend of a saint. And I don't really see him as a villain, or a straightforward villain, but more as an anti-hero, or a Byronic hero even, if you were to use the term inspired by Lord Byron to mean a character who is very powerful and very alluring, but also heavily flawed and very rebellious. Certainly today everyone remembers and in a way celebrates the relationship of Catherine and Heathcliff and how powerful it is. We enjoy the thrill of that subversion of boundaries, so in that sense you can say the novel is radical,
But then you have that restoration to normality and harmony at the end with the marriage of young Kathy and Ayrton on New Year's Day, of course.
And marriage is arguably an institution very much representing social structure and a very important moral institution in Victorian society. But when you think of Victorian society, you often think of a gap between the surface ideals and the reality behind closed doors. So could the book be perhaps highlighting or satirising this in some way? Remember, optimistic ideals are frequently crushed in Wuthering Heights. Isabella's view of Heathcliff as a hero of romance is quickly proven to be false, and, of course, younger Kathy believes that Linton loves her, but the grim reality is that Linton is actually very ill and is basically being forced to appear keen by Heathcliff, who really mistreats him horribly in what I think is one of the most disturbing parts of the novel.
This goes back to the link with the Gothic as well, and the setting it is very significant because it's the idea of peeling back the veneer of civilization and ideals to reveal what lies underneath. And having the story take place in the desolation of the moors creates an isolation where normal rules don't apply. Anything can happen. Human nature is unrestrained.
This is certainly a beautiful country. In all England, I do not believe that I could have fixed on a situation so completely removed from the stir of society, a perfect misanthropist's heaven. So Bronte effectively creates a micro-world where melodrama becomes the mundane, which in fact only makes the deviancy more obvious, resulting in what Charlotte Bronte described in her 1850 preface to Wuthering Heights as a rude and strange production to any outsider. I would suggest that Emily Bronte was very conscious of this effect, despite the fact that her sister said that she did not know what she had done, because there are some symbolic details in there, like how as soon as Lockwood arrives at the moors, he immediately becomes ill. It's almost like it was caused by him crossing the threshold into this chaotic other world, a world inhabited by ghosts. Remember that Catherine and Heathcliff's relationship crosses the boundary of life and death, as well as social class and possibly race. Everyone remembers the ghost scene from the third chapter, and I think rightly so, because the imagery there is very powerful. But I'd like to draw attention, if I can again, to something else that Catherine says when she's talking to Nellie Dean. Heaven did not seem to be my home, and I broke my heart with weeping to come back to earth, and the angels were so angry that they flung me out into the middle of the heath on the top of Wuthering Heights, where I woke sobbing for joy. When you think of ghosts, it's all about entrapment and not being at peace, so you have Catherine and Heathcliff's bond being treated in a negative way again there, but at the same time, in a way, she is at peace because, as it's stated, Catherine belongs on the earth. She doesn't belong in heaven. The biggest problem I faced with analysing a long novel like this is there is so much of it. There's literally something you could say about every page, and I've only really skimmed over it in this video. So with this one in particular, I'd really encourage you to pick up the book and find your own evidence and make your own arguments, possibly using what I've said as a starting point, or possibly arguing against what I've said. Remember, all literature is subjective. The other thing that I wanted to say is that my novella, From the Heavens, has now been finished and has been published online. I'll put the link to that in the description. Of course, I'd be grateful if you could check it out. Maybe just read the first chapter, and then if you hate it and want nothing else to do with it, that's fine. But maybe just tell me why you hated it, because obviously I want to improve in the future. As always, check out my website and my Facebook page. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.